I learned, I think maybe both of you, but especially Brandon, since you're back in the States, that, you follow the fried chicken business, because there was this phenomena. I guess it's still there. You have to give maybe a quick update, but there was this phenomena of Cane's chicken, which I think it was the Stanley Thermos Cup of its time. It was just sweeping the nation. The Bobby Sox were going crazy for it or whatever. And so that's good, because I think what we should do here is, you know, over there, kind of to the northwest or so, you got the United Kingdom and sundry other islands, and it looks like they're about to experience the Chick-fil-A invasion. It's going to be some fried chicken,
some lines two blocks long.
this is some waffle fries, and if I was doing the year over year CAGR correctly, anywhere between 50 to 80 different sauces that you can dip
Wow.
chicken nuggets into. And so I don't mean this to sound like some sort of hoity-toity thing, but I think I've only been to a Chick-fil-A in the last 20 years, maybe like once or twice. I feel like maybe when I was younger and it was just, a Chick-fil-A, I would go there more frequently, because I have memories of the waffle fries before this time when I went there 10 years ago. So I must have gone there a lot. But so I don't really know what it's like nowadays, but so I got two questions. One, how is Chick-fil-A gonna differentiate itself from we have fried chicken on this side of the Atlantic,
Really?
oddly enough, right? And then two, so when you're one of these British people, or I don't remember the litany, Wales, Scotland, is Cornwall its own thing? Whatever all the different things, the Cornish people and the Welsh,
Northern Ireland.
and then you got the British, and then you got the Northern Ireland people and the Scots.
No British, it's only the English.
Right. So exactly. I don't even know. Right. And so all of these people,
The Crown again, Coté.
When they go in there, what's their game plan for maximum enjoyment? What are they going to do? The first visit and the second visit. So that's I want to prepare a dossier here.
To quickly recap the news. So Chick-fil-A has confirmed it will open in the UK in early 2025. So for those international listeners who maybe never heard of Chick-fil-A, it's the third largest, if you want to say quick service, as they like to say, but really fast food restaurant in the United States. But I think it's the best. I think of all the food and fast food, I think it's good. So I don't know. My question, that's going to be really what I wanted to know, is sure, I do understand I'm fried chicken, I would assume, exists wherever there are chickens. There's a fried chicken somewhere, I would assume. But I do think Chick-fil-A has sort of perfected the fried chicken sandwich. And of course, they serve it with pickles on a bun. So first question, I just don't know for the people in the UK. I know they have their fish and chips and things like that. Is just the act of it being served that way, is that going to be new and novel to our friends in the UK? So that's my first question. I do think the recipe will be, unique to the UK. I don't think they have nowhere does. Just lots of people will replicate something similar, but Chick-fil-A has a very unique kind of taste to it. So I think that is the first thing I would say. Second thing is, of course, the waffle fries. I don't know. When I've been to really just London, I can't say I've traveled around the UK. It's I don't think the fries are that good. So I think the fries could be a major innovation. I don't know culturally, or the chips. Yeah, as I say, the chips. I think culturally, I feel like the United States, we really know how to do fries in a way that we have a lot of different kinds of fries, or chips, as they say. So I think that could be quite the innovation. And then the most important thing I want to know, and I don't know, I wish they had more in the press release here, is will Chick-fil-A take over iced tea and make it unlimited refills, right? In the UK? That would be, that's, to my knowledge, would be very uncommon in the UK. So I think that's what they have to look forward there. And then, of course, one of the reasons I think you've been away from it, Coté, is you've been, obviously living outside the United States, mostly during the time when you've had children. Your children have mostly, been with you in the UK. And I think it is a great place when you have younger children, right? It's a great place to just take them and they can see the cow and things like that. So I think all of that together is what the UK is going to get to look forward to when Chick-fil-A invades. I think it's going to be a pretty big success, but I don't know. Like culturally, maybe it gets rejected, and I can't tell you. I don't know. What do you think, Matt? You're the resident person that definitely doesn't eat chicken, but will our friends in the UK enjoy it?
Well, I know that the English love everything American. They just can't help themselves. So
I hear they're
it'll-
starting Thanksgiving there and 4th of July soon too.
Yeah. I think there are gonna be some. I think it'll probably do well. Just based off transposing Australia's reaction to new fast food types from America. I mean, seeing a line out the door for Taco Bell was something else. But it'll probably do well. I'm sure that they've scoped out locations for, maximum penetration. They're not like, totally out in the middle of nowhere or anything. They're going to be near places where they might still get some tourist foot traffic, I bet. Yeah, it'll probably do fine. I bet they will tailor I bet they do not have like unlimited free iced tea. That just
No, I'm sure not. Well, I
Yeah.
was thinking, if I was to be able to pick a location, right, where this should go, of course, it would probably be impossible. It's like, I think you put this in the Heathrow terminal. I think it would do fantastic,
Interesting.
right? I think a couple
Yes.
things you have going there. One, it's great, get grab and go kind of food just in general if you're traveling.
Yeah.
Two, so many people traveling through Heathrow. Obviously, you have all the Americans. It's sort of like a little bit of like, oh, I can get something I want, but it's such a major hub of international travel. I think people would just be hitting it and be like, I've heard of this weird Chick-fil-A place, and I don't live in the United States, and maybe I'm just transferring to go onto another country. There's like, I got to try it. So I think that would be the place to go. But Cote, you're in London probably more than all of us combined by a lot. Like, what's the competition? If you were to get a chicken sandwich or something quick, I guess it would be just fish and chips. Is there like a popular fish and chips place that would, if you will, Chick-fil-A will be competing with?
Well, we got a lot of topics to work through here, Brandon. You really like spilled open a bag of chicken or worms or beans or something. And so to answer your question, I'm not an expert on the fast food scene in the UK there, but I'm pretty sure they have KFC. I'm like 90% sure. And so I almost think KFC is going to be the major competition, right? Because KFC, I think they've blazed a trail when it comes to fried chicken on bread. So that is known to Europe, right?
Okay.
God knows around here, after, you can tell when like it's got to be boys, because I think the not boys of humanity put their trash in the trash can. But so that you go by parking lots and they'll just be like piles of KFC leftovers, like paper. But so I think you got that going. Now, KFC is a bit of the McDonald's of fried chicken. So I think if you brought in another brand, even if it's just not just, but also, to an American, just like Chick-fil-A, fast food, whatever, right? Like I think there might be something interesting to it. Right? Like it might be kind of more of an exotic thing, just like, oh, KFC, it's just fried chicken. It's the original fried chicken thing. And then KFC is always going like, it seems like they're always like going into weird flavors and combinations. I guess they're owned by Frito, right? Or I always get them mixed up if they're owned by Frito or if they're owned by the Yum brands or whatever. So, they got that idea of like, let's have a bunch of variety of stuff. I actually have no idea. Maybe the KFC people are like, no, we keep it simple. So I think that's probably their biggest competition, sort of straight up competition you would have, which I don't know. I feel like they probably would be successful there because KFC's been around here for a long time and it can't be like that interesting. I feel, it seems like it's that category that like, if you want to get fried chicken, you're either going to go to like the one-off place, like a little.
There are a lot of one-off places.
Yeah. They must have a name for this in like English speak. Like we might say a deli or a bodega or like, just a little hole in the wall place. But there's a lot of places like that in Europe in general and in the UK. And like they sell fried chicken, but it's just like Jerry's or like whatever. So you'd compete with them. But I think there's a good chance of competing against KFC because it's just like the water supply. Now let's go to the next thing. The fries, the chips. I don't know. Maybe this is going to damage my career, but I feel like out of all places that I get fries, UK has the worst fries. They're just like they're like soggy. They're like kind of not too warm. They're kind of greasy, and they're like it's basic. This, I know how silly this sounds, but it's basically just like eating a potato, right? It's not like it doesn't have this transformative experience with the potato that like a good fry has, where it's like I know this is made out of potato, but it tastes like a fry, right? It's a whole different sort of thing, and they don't do like the.
Yeah.
They don't do, I don't know what Luxembourg's up to, but they don't do the Benelux style fry where it's like twice fried and kind of like extra crispy and like, it doesn't have that going on. It's not the French / American fry, right? Like you would get at a McDonald's. And it's definitely not it's close to like what we would call steak fries. But like, I don't know, man. It seems like the recipe for like a UK fry is like, cut a fry that's kind of like the dimension of if you were to chop off your big toe and double that in size, and then like only cook it a third of the time that you would want to cook a French fry for, and stick it in a box, and Bob's your uncle. Enjoy. So any different French fry that you bring there, I think. Now, of course, if you grew up eating those kind of fries, you think they're the best. Just like maybe not Matt because he's health conscious and runs marathons and stuff. But like most Americans, you would say Kraft mac and cheese. And they would be like, hell yes. Breakfast, lunch, and dinner, right? Disgusting food. So it might be kind of like that. So the fry thing, I think the introduction of waffle fries from a novelty with 30 types of sauce, that could get you going places. Now let's talk about the sauce part. I make fun of that. But people love the fuck out of their sauces in this continent and over there in that area, right? Like you go get good fries or any fries, and there's just like a bewildering array of sauces, all sorts of things. You don't even know what they are. So people enjoy different sauces. So that might be a power, especially if it comes in those. They still have those little tubs of sauce. Is that the primary delivery mechanism?
It is. Yep.
What I think would be magical there is you also have, there's people in the States who are like this, but I don't know if it's like, because they care about the long-term sustainability of the earth. They're riding around trains all the time instead of cars. They're trying to like preserve stuff. But I think that like there would be people who would really like collecting those sauce packets because they'll stay on the shelf, right? And so like any additional of those sauce packets you get after 5-10 years, the country's just going to be awash in unopened sauce packets, right? Which are like mini billboards kind of advertising it, all sorts of varieties. I think that could be a powerful sort of like advertising weapon, almost is it a fifth column of sort of like little partisan guerrilla warfare marketing going on there, little sauce packets everywhere. And I could even see those various sauces. I mean, I don't know. I guess maybe it wouldn't happen because Frito would be a rival. So it would be like, one of the other cloud companies using Amazon for something, like a grocery store using Amazon for fulfillment. But I could see them coming up with Frito-Lay chip flavors, crisps, as they would say, for all the various types of sauces. And just think about the shelf space you could take up with that, right? I heard from a friend I have here who works for a crisp or a chip company that a lot of the reasons they have all these absurd chip flavors is because they just want to take up shelf space. It's like kind of grocery tactics. You go into a grocery store.
Expansion, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Like if 15%, if 15, 20% of the shelf is taken up by your chip brand, you're just going to win.
It's not
because
somebody else. Yeah.
Yeah. Because people buy it. So That's an interesting angle there. Now, you said, I think maybe for me the most important thing that I hadn't even thought of: free refills. I think currently there's a toehold of what I would call humane, ethical, uh, and good sort of like beverage management, non-alcoholic beverage management, which is to say free refills and ice. Like I don't really, there's a lot of great stuff the EU's doing, I guess, about privacy and AI regulations. They brought us USB-C cords, as I understand it, but I think they really need to look into this beverage refill situation because maybe Cory Doctorow is working on one of his patented funny little clip art things, and his newsletters, instead of linking to something, he just pastes a URL right into there. I kind of like that style, but I feel like use an href. But I guess he's coming from like, you'll have to tell me, Matt Ray. I think he's coming from a mailman sort of perspective where you don't have native HTML, and yet he puts images. He puts pictures in there that get rendered. So I don't know. I think
it's very much an ASCII art kind of style.
Yeah. So whatever. I get it. But I think maybe one of his pictures, one of his diatribes he needs to work on is like, the tyranny of the lack of free refills, right? I mean, picture this. You're talking about kids. You go to a restaurant. I know we've been to Europe, but maybe Brandon, for you, it's the most shocking. You have to tell me what they do in Australia, Matt. But you sit down. Of course, the kids want to order a drink. They might order an apple juice, maybe a Coca-Cola, maybe a Coke Zero or Pepsi Max, whatever. Always funny that they chose to call it a Pepsi Max when it's the most minimum Pepsi that they have. I guess there's sugar in it. No, there's not sugar, but there's caffeine. But you sit down, you pay the equivalent of $5 to $7 for basically, by American standards, a half bottle of Coke. Your kid sucks it down, just sort of like immediately in 2 minutes. You're done.
100 mils.
Right. And they don't even, and then they want to charge you for water, right? So the beverage situation, and it's like this in the UK too, in Europe, is just heinous. They need to fix their shit. So, all right, we've got Five Guys who's introduced, and they have the ethical, proper way to handle beverages in a restaurant. Now we're going to have two sort of beacons of beverage correctness.
Well, is Five Guys already there on the ground?
Yeah, there's a lot of Five Guys everywhere.
Okay,
like
have they brought their freewheeling American ways with them?
To be fair, I haven't verified this in London, but I have done some channel checks here on the continent. And you go in there, and they've got that kind of the ATM of American culture, the Coke Sir Mix-a-Lot machine. That like you go up there and you touch the touch screen and it'll just do whatever you want.
Oh, they have that one, yeah.
And it dispenses ice, right? So precious bodily fluids on tap, free refills, all that you could want. So I think I'm imagining at a Chick-fil-A they have the standard big drink array with that thing you push in, and then also the ice machine.
Yeah, I don't know, but we'll have to wonder. These are the things. Who knows? Maybe Chick-fil-A will change what they bring, the way they do it in the UK. And I think that's the big thing. It's like exactly what they'll bring. But I think your point, Coté, I think we want, if I was in charge, I would hope that the people at Chick-fil-A was like, bring the whole experience, bring the iced tea, bring the ice, bring the soda fountain, bring the sandwiches, bring the fries. And you know what? Let the people decide. Let the people decide what they really enjoy.
Because this is the differentiation I think you could have from the other American fast food brands and also the local ones. Everyone's got their, we don't want to be the empire against the empire here, right? They've all got their own stuff. But, you got McDonald's, Burger King, KFC. This is true. But when you go to those, with some exceptions, they kind of Europeanize them, right? So they don't have free range like drink machines that you go to, right? And they even inside they kind of have a feel of like, this doesn't quite feel like an American restaurant, right? Or place. But the Five Guys I bet they studied Five Guys a lot. You want to take the Five Guys approach where like, you go into a Five Guys, you're like in Little America. It's like more American than the embassies and the consulates that you go in. They don't have Americans patented you know, guard system where they're basically like, I could welcome you in here or throw you down and handcuff you. It could go either way with American guards wherever you are. No, that you just go in there. It's like it has that like unnatural cleanliness of an American fast food place that almost is painful to be in. It's got the drink refills. People are really happy. And then Five Guys has also introduced this notion of, you go there, you can have whatever burger toppings you want for free, right? Like, I think this is something you really got to play up if you bring an American restaurant into Europe, is this notion of you don't have to pay for that. And that is how you're really going to like make your toe hold big enough that you're going to eliminate these toe fries that they're eating in that country.
Coté, I think that may be the greatest monologue you've ever performed, certainly on fast food. So I just think well done. And I think, if you don't feel like you know enough about Chick-fil-A and it coming to the UK now, then you're just listening to the wrong podcast. So, so I think maybe we'll just leave it. If you maybe just leave it on this one final question before we move on, is just like, do you think it will be successful?
Yeah, I think as long as they stick with it, I think within 3 years, it's going to be like the Five Guys is, but even more. I mean, I don't know how many locations there are, but like, I'm not surprised anymore when I walk around. Like, there's a Five Guys you can see from King's Cross, where Harry Potter gets on the train to go to Hogwarts. And they're everywhere.
All right. Well, if anyone is listening from Chick-fil-A, because we did once talk about Chick-fil-A and their use of Kubernetes, if this hasn't convinced you, you need to have Coté come be a part of your launch in the UK and to discuss, technology. Chick-fil-A, Coté will probably give a lightning talk about DevOps, as well as platforms, as well as eating some chicken. I don't know what else we can do, but perhaps we should move on to other topics now. I think somebody that's maybe, if you will, not being overly friendly to everyone in the world is our friends over at WordPress. So I don't know if you guys been following this, the fight that's broken out between WP Engine and I guess the WordPress, well, really Automattic, I guess, Matt Mullenweg specifically. So actually, funny enough, WP Engine's here in town. I think we all kind of know at least a couple people, like, at least if not directly, a friend of a friend kind of thing. So Matt, what do you think of the drama? What's your take?
This is one of those things that I feel like my enthusiasm for the drama burned out after about 2 days of it. It got really hot and just like I just stopped caring after a while. I mean, I hate to be the one to like burst this bubble, but I mean, I think we've recapped a little bit of it. So WP Engine got acquired by Silver Lake, and
a long time ago. This is not new. This is not.
Yeah, that's not new. And weren't really contributing much to the WordPress ecosystem other than just hosting it. But and Automattic apparently owns the trademarks for the word WordPress and have the WordPress Foundation, but they're kind of like the main drivers behind it. Their CEO decided that he was tired of WP Engine being the freeloaders of open source, as well as there are literally hundreds of places you can get WordPress hosted, but those are the two big ones, Automattic and WordPress Engine. And so he sent over some emails and texts that are like, you guys need to pay up, or I'm gonna start.
Yeah, so he asked for, I think, 8% of their revenue. So and
yeah.
Also too, I think one clarification is like, this seems to be in dispute. It looks like they don't own. It is the trademark for WordPress is, if you will, not owned by Automattic, or it can be used in other ways. But that is going to be the central legal question, I think, going forward. And more pressing to it, to really get down the rat hole. It's the use of WP, the letters WP, which of course I think everyone would agree stand for WordPress. So WP Engine, right, is sort of this name's been out for a long time, and of course people associate the word WordPress with it. And I guess that's the legal distinction, is like, are you infringing on the trademark by using the letters WP? And I think only a trademark lawyer and a judge will ultimately be able to define that. Of course, WP Engine says no, they can use it free and clear. WordPress and company says absolutely not.
And you know, and so this like not particularly good behavior from Matt Mullenweg has rubbed a lot of people the wrong way. And so I've seen a lot of people who are like, you know, hey, yes, they do more in open source, but they're kind of bullies around, you know, that. And, you know, if you didn't like the license, well, that's how it works. And, you know, freeloaders come with open source. That's just how it works. And, you know, tough. And you can't just, you know, try to coerce people through this. And so my biggest takeaway is like, a lot of people are like, why am I still on WordPress?
I don't know, Coté, what do you think around the whole? I mean, I guess the ultimate question is like, does every successful open source project that ultimately makes significant money, does it always just end up in license changes and trademark disputes? Because it seems like one of the most common cited reasons to use open source is like, oh, this is so great, I won't be locked in, you know, I've got flexibility, I can do what I want, I can contribute, I can just use it. And it feels like that is only true if the project is not monetarily successful by some other company. Because if it is, it attracts just, I don't know, executives and lawyers. It feels like it happens over and over. Am I being too pessimistic, Coté? What do you think?
You know, well, it's confusing in this. There is a certain amount of like, if the I don't know the perfect words. If the owners, the founders, whoever's in charge of the open source project, kind of like the originators, whatever. I would never do a study, but you know, it seems like there would be some analysis you could do of like, if their commercial ventures, there's some amount of success they need to have, or it enters that territory you're getting into where there's kind of like things start to get like kind of they try to use other means to like have commercial success or prevent other people from being successful, right? And then hence our multi-year era of freeloading and rug pulling and all of that stuff, versus like, you know, when someone like a Google introduces Kubernetes, it's not like Google's like suing AWS for trademark infringement or something. And so there's kind of that. And so like that's an interesting theory to have, that like, unless a startup or otherwise backed open source project achieves, I don't know, several $100 million in revenue, or eventually is independent or acquired, then they move into this other like tactical realm of doing things. But on the other hand, that's what makes like the WordPress thing kind of confusing, is like, it seems like it's a little like I don't know. I hesitate to say this, but it's the thought that's in my head, is like, it seems like it's a bit of an overreaction for, I'm not sure what. Right? Like almost like there's some amount of fair play in the open source world of like, yeah, people come and use the code and it's okay to like shame them. But like beyond that, it's kind of like not normal tactics. Now that said, I mean, I forget when WordPress came out, but it is like old school open source, like in the sense of like, you know, it's GPL'd, I think, but like it is from that era of people being very philosophical about open source and not so just like blasé about it, right? But it is because the original thing is like, I should have listened more closely to Matt Ray's summary, but like WP Engine is just like not contributing enough to the overall WordPress community. And so therefore, now we have this. Whereas like other open source communities, it would seem like they wouldn't do that much. They would just complain.
I think that's the whole thing, though, that I think is just confusing about, and this is why this keeps happening over and over. This idea of like if you make it open source, there is no like requirement. Like this was the idea, I think, to me. It was like, hey, you said it earlier. Use the software however you want. There's no requirement that once you start using it, you have to do anything, right? I mean, I think that's the whole purpose, was like, you can do what you want, right?
Yeah.
So like, you know, in this case, it's like, I can understand like why you would want to encourage a successful company that is using the open source project to contribute to it. And to be fair, I think WP Engine's put out some stuff that says they, contribute something. I've probably not as
I'm sure
clearly
they
not
do.
as much as Matt obviously thinks they want, but I don't know. Like, to me, it just kind of comes back to like this is the whole founding thing. It's like, why are we like, if something gets successful, only when it is successful, and this company has built up a very successful business, and it goes on to say that Matt originally invested in WP Engine along with other WordPress hosting companies, and so not this Matt Mullenweg, the CEO of. So I don't know. I just think we're just sort of like, if we want to be open source, if I don't know, maybe in the end it's people. People are very complicated. People have emotions. And I think we see this over and over. Like a project gets successful, people. It's just like almost like going back to like the core of human nature. It's like, I feel like you're taking an advantage of me and not doing and giving me enough credit for what I've done. I'm mad about that. I want you to do something. I'm gonna call you a cancer. I'm gonna basically, tell everyone
Lenny
you're
doesn't even
awful.
have to get involved and that happens. I
Right.
mean, people are
Yeah.
bad everywhere, but
I know, and again, and so I guess that's all it is. Maybe in the end, people just bring all of this to open source. But it's sort of like, to me, it just like, I don't know. So at times it just like, it kind of like just makes you feel like, well, at least when we're just buying and selling thing, everybody knows where everyone stands. You know what I mean? It's like, I'm giving you money, you're giving me this. And if I don't want to give you money, you don't provide any more service. And I think the biggest thing that really caught my attention was that I guess WordPress essentially in effect cut off WP Engine's ability to, if you will, like update from the various, I guess, the core, and like, and that is really dragging into people that have I bet you a lot of these people running WordPress like don't even know what's going on. They don't even understand that it's open source or they literally hired someone to be like, just build me a website, right? And help me do it. And so suddenly now all of these people are put at risk and, potentially have security issues. And it's like, I mean, gosh, like if you kind of went into this with like, I want people to use the software, I want it to be successful, and now you're actively hurting the people that use it. It's like, what is the point? You know what I mean? Like, exactly. What have you even created?
You've created an opening for alternatives.
Yeah, I guess so.
Like I just by chance saw the I don't know, like a couple days later, the recording of the original cancer rant or whatever, and that's fine. Like everyone loves a good roast of people, or most people do. But like as things escalate, I keep waiting for like the like, oh, I see why he's going crazy, right? Like this has happened or this has happened, but really it's just like pretty run of the mill open source world stuff. And there's also like accessing services and things like that. So that like actually costs money, but you could just, is business-ize a word? You could just make a business thing out of that. And
right,
so
but
like
certainly you can say you don't want to incur those costs, but you certainly don't after having established a precedent of doing it for a long period of time. You don't just give someone a day's notice.
Right.
Like, I'm turning off. You could say, hey, as part of our terms of service over the next in whatever 6 months, this will no longer be available, or you have to pay a fee. Okay. I mean, again, maybe that's annoying, but that's at least like a reasonable thing to have a conversation about. So
yeah. And
it's horrible.
I guess, to try to have a I don't know if it's a steel man, but let's say a well-dried brick person instead of just straw or whatever. Like, maybe it's like there's an experimentation in how an open source project defends itself, whereas like the conclusion of a lot of our what we've seen in the open source world when it's commercialized, as we were just going over the past few years, is just sort of like, yep, sucks to not be a giant company, right? And I don't know. We'll see if something pans out there, but still, I don't think that's a strong enough case of just like, yeah, but as you were saying, it's open source. People just come and use stuff under the terms of the license.
Well, even to your point earlier, like I even think that notion of like defending itself, it's like, I don't like, to me, if you make it open source, like nothing to defend. It's like, hey, this is out there. This is the code. Everyone can use it. You can build businesses on it if you want. You can compete against it. But like, I don't know, the idea that we've got to like defend the, you know what I mean? It's like you at the beginning when you said I want everyone to use it and I want everyone to use it under this like accessible license. It's like, that's when you make the decision, right? You're not like
Well,
defending anything.
and you don't wait till this far along into the race. So if you look at how System Init is doing it, they vary from the get-go. They're like, you can't use our trademark. Boom. You can't call it System Init. You can call it whatever you want. It's open source. We're going to run a hosted version. That's it. And you know what? That's the beginning of the race. They said, so if Automattic, I assume, were the original authors of WordPress, which, maybe they're not even that, but they've got this trademark. If they'd said, you can't call it WP, you can't call it WordPress. Other than that, go free and enjoy it. And, we'll do licensing on the trademark or something like that. We wouldn't be having this argument. What are we, 15 years down the road? I don't even know how old WordPress is, but it's forever, right? And if that had been the ground rules, maybe WordPress wouldn't have taken off the way it did. Maybe that would have been slowed its adoption. So then they wouldn't have the billions to fight over. But here we are today, and it's like, you can't change the rules during the race. That's what drives people nuts.
No, I think you said it right. And I think maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this is like, the rug pulls and stuff like that is like, changing the rules on the trademark, changing the rules on the licenses only after you've achieved success is sort of like, the exact opposite of what in theory these projects are starting out to believe. So like, to me, I don't know. I just kind of look at it like, hey, WP Engine's, free to do what it wants. And, obviously, it's fine for Automattic to be critical of them, but doing all this other stuff, sort of, cutting off the actual end users. And it's like, and it's fine. If it ends up in another fork, fine, that, that will work out. But it's like, in the end, it does kind of feel like everyone loses. It's just like, well, here we go again, another fork. Everyone have to like go through the process of like, uninstalling or making things right and editing out which code is quote unquote not open source and the trademarks. And it's just like, what a waste of time. It's like, here we are, like, especially when software people start open source projects, it's like, I don't want to like deal with all the business side. I just want to build great software. And it's like, then, what do we end up with? Trademark lawyers. We end up with a bunch of busy forking projects, and we end up with a bunch of lawyers talking about licenses. It's like, wow, what a successful endeavor, everyone. Great job. Thank God we didn't just start a business at the beginning and ask for money. This is so much better now. So I don't know, just really just a depressing example of an open source project to me, just completely off the rails.
Yeah, it's no Chick-fil-A in the UK situation.
Amen. Everyone, maybe they should all go to Chick-fil-A and just work it out. Have as much iced tea as they want.
Well, it's a real shame we don't have Squarespace as a sponsor.
Yeah. What do they use it? Like, well, I guess everyone just go to Squarespace.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, you know what? I don't think there's anything open source there. And, they have a very straightforward business. Like, you pay us, we host it. Done.
I was trying to think the other one is Ghost. What is Ghost? Is that an open source?
I think is open source.
Okay, maybe that has the same problems. And I was just like, I don't know. Like, but just well, I guess in the end, it's the funniest thing is too. It's like someone else. This is someone else's line. It's like, well, like no one can make WordPress work anymore. So might as well be time to just change out of it. It's already impossibly hard to like configure in any meaningful way. So maybe this will just get us all off onto some new content management system once and for all.
Well, people who don't have a problem not being open is the ironically named OpenAI. And they seem, now I know you cover this very closely, Brandon, but I think they're worth maybe $500 billion now. What's the
157? I think it's $157 billion.
Yeah, I read through earlier today, as I like to do, lightly preparing for the show. I don't like to put too much stress on myself, have a mental breakdown. So, but I read through one of the most bloggiest startup blog posts ever, where it's like, we're paving the way for an open future. And I think the only reason that was written was to say, here's the money that we raised. See you later.
A lot of money, yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm going to put a new heuristic in my head is that once someone uses the old what is the phrase? Post value. What am I looking for here? It's like you say what the valuation is after the funding that you've gotten. You can tell I'm big in the startup scene because normally this phrase would just roll off your tongue. But I think anytime that word is used, you just got to punch out of it.
Yeah, just to give
Post money
everyone,
valuation.
I was say give the full numbers here. They raised 6.6 billion with a B dollars, and that gives them, to your point, Coté, a post money valuation of 157 billion. So things are pretty good. That's a pretty good. And they also in here also allude to that. They say 250 million people around the world use Chat GPT. Whatever, they don't say every how often, but 250 million people using it. So that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that actually starts to matter. If you're caring about paying subscribers, it's like over 250 million people have used our stuff. That's like Google saying, over 7.8 billion people have been touched by our software. It's like, ugh.
Now that said, I did, I think I went for maybe 30 or 45 days without paying for it because I was like, I'm going to use this Gemini thing and this Perplexity thing. But then I did start paying for it again. I'm not really sure why, because I still don't have, it's probably because I'm in Amsterdam. Like I went to the website and it was like, hey, here's a QR code to install the app so you can get that that fast talking voice thing. So I was like, oh, they must have made it available on my account. But then of course not once you install it. App. Maybe I need to tap into one of those Tailscale networks that makes it seem like I'm calling from like Iowa or chatting from Iowa or something.
Everybody's based out of Brandon's house.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. This one place in Austin. Well, it is interesting. Lots of course, like no shortage of hot takes on the whole, is it a good business or not? And I do think, I think Ben Thompson's done some good writing and thinking on this. It's like, I think, my take is just like all these things, like these consumer internet phenomenons just kind of come out of nowhere. No one can predict them. So it's like when you get 250 million people to even try anything, like you have a chance. You have a chance to be the next $1 trillion plus, consumer internet company. And I think it's like you're playing the highest risk game. So it's like, yeah, if you're someone that's like if you have to invest hundreds of millions or billions of dollars, and I don't know, there's like a 1 in 10 chance, maybe less, maybe more, of this company becoming $1 trillion company. It makes sense. Like I can see why people are doing it. And in Open or ChatGPT really, I mean, it is really at this point a brand. I think we all talk about the other ones, Anthropic and others, and it's like, but like it has incredible mind share to the point that like you could probably switch out the models all the time, right? You just have such a big user base, and just as long as you are providing a really good experience, it would be very hard for any company to kind of like capture the mind share that they already have.
And I bet out of those 250 million people, a fairly large number of them don't know what OpenAI is.
Yeah, that's true. It's not even obvious when you go to the website, right? I guess if you're just sort of like using the ChatGPT, you don't need, So I know it is one of these things where it's like you could tell me anything, and there's this one blog post I put in here where it's a pretty analytical take about why OpenAI is a really bad business. Essentially, they lose a lot of money and it's really expensive, and their prospects to make money going forward look really bad. So that's one example. But it does remind me a little bit of like, I remember specifically when YouTube was purchased by Google. I think it was like $1 billion, 1.5 billion, like quaint, right? I mean, it seemed huge at the time, but it was like, wasn't even that big in retrospect. And everyone was talking about like, it's way too costly to host. The videos, they don't have very much content. It's just going to bankrupt Google because all they're going to do is lose money on it. And this is before they kind of figured out like tons of people would, upload videos. They came up with an advertising model. Instagram comes to mind. It's the same kind of thing. It's like all you do is post pictures. Obviously, Facebook's made that like an ATM. So, there is like, at the beginning, it looks weird, but like sometimes very profitable businesses come out of it. And sometimes, of course, these things completely flame out. So good luck to the people who invested it.
Yeah. I mean, I think the two things. One, like, I think, I don't know who we is, but I think we're starting to see like what AI is useful for beyond like a little chat window, which actually, once you can upload files to it, is very useful as well. But like, since I do have the 4-page Gemini thing, like I see it in Gmail all the time and over here and over there. I unfortunately I'll get to this, but like, and if the Apple AI stuff actually is good and isn't just like shit, which is, there's a high chance of that being the case, like then so many people would also see that kind of thing in play of how like it's simple, but for example, like the other day I got, what was I mailed? The Dutch government they're very polite about this. They send you a letter to tell you that you need to file taxes.
Oh,
And,
nice.
it's just a nice little letter. And of course, it's in Dutch, which I still can't really read. But you click on the PDF, how you do that in Gmail, and it kind of shows it to you. And instantly it gave me a summary of like what was important and what I needed to do. And so, I mean, you and I, Brandon, joke about this all the time. Like, really, my primary use case for AI is like, look at all the emails from the 2 schools that my 3 kids go to and just tell me what I got to do this week. Right. Like, I don't, it's just like, and it's like that. It's the same thing in a corporate setting. It's just like, I don't care, man. What do I need to do?
Yeah. Tell me what I need
Like,
to do, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Just tell me the exact thing I need to do, when it needs to be done by, so I can do it. It's kind of like when you sit down to do your ethics and compliance thing, you're like, hey, I'm not going to like launder money. I'm not going to embezzle stuff. Just please tell me what you want to and let me get out of here. Anyways.
Well, you
so
hit
like,
on the Apple thing before you leave it. Like, that's the other kind of aspect here is like at some point, I mean, so far the Apple AI stuff, from what I've actually seen, it's pretty rudimentary, not very good. But like you can see a case where like eventually they, if you will, have the OpenAI stuff incorporated and say all of a sudden, the billion plus iPhone users really like it, then that's at some point Apple will probably be like, let's just pay you a royalty. We want to keep this, we want to make sure people keep using our phones.
Well,
so let's come up with some agreements. So let's see yet another path of potential ways to make money going down the road.
But actually, like Apple was rumored to be one of the investors, and then it was like, no, they didn't invest. So to me, that's saying, they're hedging their bets to say that they think that they can do this without OpenAI. That this current relationship with OpenAI is based on the idea that Apple can't displace them at some point. And to me, that's actually quite telling, because I'm thinking, if Apple thinks that they can do well enough at the edge, or in their own data centers with their own chips, maybe with TensorFlow, maybe with other, or maybe at Google, they don't need OpenAI. And so when I see the OpenAI valuation, I'm like, that's hoping everything breaks their way and the field doesn't catch them. And I think the field will catch them.
Right. I think you make some good case there, and that is definitely a possibility. But I do think you just to take the other side, right? It's like you're kind of sitting there negotiating, right? Apple says like, we don't think you need, we need you. We're going to step out of this one. They said, okay, that's fine. Like the price right now is, X. If you do need us, you know what? The price is going to be 10X, right?
Right.
And
Right.
That's kind of the thing. It's like, kind of think about Google search, right? Like, Google, I mean, there was that moment, right? Google, I mean, I guess Apple and Google had a similar kind of thing. It's like, you either pay us, I think the Apple was getting like $20 billion, right? I mean, because Apple was like, you either pay us $20 billion or we're going to build our own search engine. Like, and we're about to see who really needs whom. And so I think you can kind of have the same kind of argument here with ChatGPT. It's like, absolutely, technically you can like switch out these models. And it seems like if behind the scenes, it doesn't really matter. But like there's a brand like Google, you can switch out the search engines, but people want to go to Google, right? And a lot of people say the search engines are like, when they do the anonymous studies, it's very similar, right? So so you're just making a huge bet. And it's like in the case of Apple, it's like, okay, like you're betting $3 trillion. Like if suddenly I eat into your market share on the iPhone, right, your business is in real trouble. So, so it's a really high stakes game, right? I mean, these are like the richest people in the world. I think generally the most valuable companies in the world playing the highest game of like, chicken or poker, whatever you want to call it. And it could go a lot of different ways.
But Apple's already called the bluff before and rolled out Google or Apple Maps, right? And so they didn't have, they've played this game of poker and they've won essentially. And so that's why Google pays them on the search, because they don't want to deal with that potential loss.
Right. I agree. So on the iPhone,
and Apple is
I would say this. Let me throw this out at you, Matt. It's like, I think they have won it for the smartphone like no one has ever won before. But like, I don't know if we're talking about today, but like, I would say they're the latest Apple headset, Vision Pro, not off to a great start, right? No. Facebook obviously has these glasses no one can buy that like maybe people like, maybe no. But I just saying like, again, like you're just talking about $1 trillion bets. So I'm just saying like, if, there are ways like, if you get, what is it like, hogs get fat, pigs, what is it? Pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered, right? It's like, hey, you got to protect every flank, right? Even Intel, we talked about Intel last week, think how successful they were. No one's ever going to touch them. And like things happen fast. So again, like I'm not predicting it. I'm not saying it, but I'm just saying like you have serious risk. If OpenAI becomes the next like Google thing and you're Apple and you become beholden to them, it will cost you a lot of money. And maybe that's a fair bet for them to make.
In listening to you two talk this through and then listening to myself so much as I can do that, like it's making me think that like if I think about the stuff I do that is Apple, there's like so little usage for like good AI. Like Apple doesn't, I mean, I don't know what their share is, but they don't do email, they don't do documents, they don't do spreadsheets. The only text thing that they have is messaging, I think. And like even email, I mean, there probably are actually, it'd be interesting to see how many people use the iOS mail app versus like the Google app. I bet just because, anyways, that would be interesting to see.
I think it's a lot. It's a default, man. I think about
yeah,
a lot
yeah.
of people do it.
And then there's the calendar, but like I don't know, like
they provide all of those things. But the question is, how much do people actually buy in?
Right. And then even like email might be an exception, but like across the things that Apple does, like how good of an AI do you need for whatever it is you're going to do, right? Like there's the old Siri thing. Like it'd be nice to like have it actually do stuff. But even when you think about where you would use like really good generative AI or whatever stuff, like it's hard to imagine across that Apple stuff like what you would need it for. Like I don't think you need that much for like messaging people. Like that's pretty straightforward. And so I think that leaves open this whole thing of like, in the same way that like, they don't really need to do search, and like their maps product is kind of cool, but it is sort of also like kind of a waste of things. So strategically, I forget which one was the hog and the pig, but there is always this concern of like owning the customer, right? Which people learn over and over again, that you want to have full control of the customer. But it seems more like it would just make sense in the same way that it's outsourced to Google, just like make calls to a back end of AI. Cause like, what are they going to do with it? Like there's not much that you could surface there. And then, so therefore, like once they do release Apple Intelligence or Apple AI, whatever, like I can see that it'd be really underwhelming, not because the technology would be bad, but because you would just be like, oh, this is all, right? Like it's not going to like have a big wow moment. Like, I don't know, maybe on the other hand, if they do sort of just have like your friendly Apple chatbot, which would be fascinating to see how they would do that. Yeah. That might be interesting. But
well, and that's where they're headed. And I think what is underwhelming about their current offering is the fact that Apple isn't sharing their ecosystem to OpenAI. They're just like, oh, we need to make some calls from you guys, give us some stuff. We can't let you peek under the covers. We can't let you access all this treasure trove of data. So if Apple can move the OpenAI bit into their own, into their own silos, into their own walled garden, that walled garden just, grows. And becomes that much more compelling, because Apple, for all their flaws, are protective. They're protective of your privacy because they want to be the only ones who get to exploit it.
Yeah, and then I have only two more things here, none of them related to fried chicken, and one, like I think there's some interesting, like nothing to do with the technology, but like business moves you could make with like bundling things. So like I pay for the Gemini stuff, right? And what you get with Gemini is you actually get the mid-tier Google One thing. You don't have a choice. It's bundled. You're just forced to buy it, which gives you 2 terabytes of storage and like a Calendly feature. I mean, you get some other stuff, but there's not really that much you get except the 2 terabytes. And I was thinking, if they bundled YouTube Premium into that and like bumped it up a little bit, like I would pay for that, because I pay for YouTube Premium, of course. And then now I'm also paying for Gemini / 2 terabytes of Google stuff. And pretty soon you're kind of like, oh, well, this is like your monthly reoccurring $100 plus a month for cable sort of situation where you just like pay it for eternity. And so, I also pay for the Apple One thing. Man, I pay for too much shit. But like, if there was some way of like bundling in like an AI thing into that, then maybe that would be good enough. Because really, like, I don't need multiple AIs. I just have them because I'm a technology person and I'm interested. But eventually, they'll kind of converge. And if they're open enough that like I can do the same thing across any of them, like I would rather just pay Apple like $80 to $100 a month for all my shit, right? Instead of going to all these different places. So like maybe there's this advantage of bundling stuff, which is like, that's also a funny thing to think of, is like, oh, so Google is just ads and the cable bundle. That's what's going on here. And then the other thing that I think like crazy valuations and all the stuff in AI is, I don't know, not totally insane, is like, I don't think it's still like rolled out in businesses yet, right? Like that experience that I get in checking my email with Gemini, like I can't do that at my normal work,
Yeah.
right? Like I think very few of the people, like, you don't have the little Google Clippy tapping on your thing saying like, you want some help writing that quarterly report, right? And I think, we see it in the consumer space, and there is like, and we deal with all the bullshit work and text that comes with the corporate world. And like, there's so much potential to take care of that stuff that it would be insane. As an example, I experimented with a lot, maybe too much, with the Notebook ML, like audio overview deep dive thing, where there's you give it whatever. Someone even gave it a completely empty text file that just had spaces in it. And they can like business bullshit corporate world the shit out of anything you give them, right? So like, and it's not so bad. So I could imagine you could go into that kind of podcast generation thing and give it like the pile of stuff you would give a team of 5 to 10 corporate people, and just be like, I don't know, figure out the strategy. And it would probably have a pretty good chance of being what that group of people would figure out, right? Like if you tuned it and worked with it, like it's pretty good stuff. So once we unleash it on like all that tedious like crap work that so many people do, I could see there's be a lot more value in it. Maybe it would kill us as workers. But
well, maybe we just leave it here. It's like, I think the one thing we can all just watch is like, obviously everyone has opinion, but the one thing that does seem to be true, it's like more people keep using it and they keep getting more money. And as long as those two things happen, they will have more and more chances to build a very large business. So
yes,
time will tell.
Well, speaking of things that people keep using, and there's more of it, do we have any bureaucracy this episode?
We do. We have a couple of quick things here. One, I know some people looking for jobs, so you should go to the Software Defined Talk Slack. You can join the jobs channel where Steve has posted what I think is the perfect job for someone listening to Software Defined Talk, to be an observability architect. And it says here, remote in the United States. I got to think we're the #1 podcast for people looking for that job. So if you go into the Slack or you click on the link that'll be in the show notes, hopefully one of you will get that job. And of course, in your interview, you should make sure that you understand that observability is very different than monitoring. Don't go in to the company and don't go to the observability company and be like, I think this is just monitoring. They don't like that. So don't do that.
Spicy monitoring.
When you would go there, don't do that. Even though that's the kind of thing I like to say. Also, following up on a suggestion from last week, I recommended the magnifier. Bruce has built on that idea. He says, make sure to add the Apple magnifier to your iPhone control center. Excellent idea. I've already done it. So it's already available, and I love the magnifier app. And I will once again say, even if you have perfect vision, I still think it comes in handy. And finally, if you would like stickers, just email your postal address to stickers@softwaredefinedtalk.com. I'll be happy to send you a sticker anywhere in the world.
Yes, a wonderful die cut sticker. None of this square shit that's got something in there. Here's a pro tip I'm going to give out for free from the Software Defined Talk marketing and DevRel consultancy. If you're going to do stickers that are square, fill the square. Don't leave a background. You always fill the square, or you need to spring the extra for die cut. I think it's what you want to go for. Well, there's going to be some places I'll be at where I'm going to test out how much money and how much care people put into stickers, because there's several conferences coming up. Next week is going to be Cloud Foundry Day at Karlsruhe. I still can't pronounce it, but it's about a 40-minute drive from Stuttgart in Germany. You can still get, I think, 20% off the $50 fee if you use a code that you can find at softwaredefinedtalk.com/487. There's also VMware Explore in Barcelona coming up November 4th to 7th. Now, I've got 2 sessions I'm doing there, and I've heard that we get treated nicely if a lot of people pre-register for the sessions. So you should go to the special address. If you're going to be VMware Explore Barcelona, or I should say if you're registered for it, doesn't matter if you go or not, you have to be registered for it. If you go to cote.pizza, you can find the sessions I'm speaking at and just register that you're going to be there. It'd be great if you also showed up. But I want to get my pre-registration numbers up because I hear that's a big deal. Also, speaking of places that we don't need to game pre-registration, I'll be speaking at SRE Day Amsterdam, November 21st in Amsterdam. We have a 20% off discount code for that too if you go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/487. I'll also be at GoTech World on November 12th and 13th in Bucharest, Romania. I don't know if I said that right, but it's what I always heard when I was a child, Bucharest. And then also, it's far into the future. Hopefully I'll be able to make it. But there's going to be DevOps Days LA at Scale 22, March 6th to 9th of 2025. No time machine yet. And there's a discount code if you use the word DevOp, which I hope that's ironically funny that you've got a DevOp going. That's fantastic. Now, speaking of things that could be ironic or genuine, do you have anything to recommend this episode, Matt?
My recommendation is a comedy classic. Watched the movie Some Like It Hot with my kids last weekend, and a lot of older movies don't date themselves well. I mean, they become a little too cringy for the youths, and but Some Like It Hot walked the line and was still laugh out loud funny. So if you're looking for a good 65-year-old movie to watch with the family, it's quite good. Marilyn Monroe apparently did not know any of her lines and was reading off of like pieces of paper on the set. But it's definitely a classic for a reason, and AFI has it as like one of the top comedies of all time, and definitely holds up.
How about yourself, Brandon? What do you have to recommend?
Well, first, I'm still shocked that movie's 65 years old. It's like, wow.
I know.
Yeah, it's like when you said that, I was like, yeah, I was doing the math. I guess you're right. So that's kind of frightening. Well, I have 2 things this week. One, I'm going to warn you, if you play this game, it just suck your time, but I like it. It's, I think it's said Balatro, Balatro. And it is a little like kind of like a solitaire video poker app game. And I know you're thinking like it's just like, what's the big deal? Well, it's now part of Apple Arcade, but if you're not an Apple Arcade person, you can buy it in the App Store. You can play it a variety of other places. So I'm new to this, but evidently this game is very popular, and I see why. As soon as you start playing it, it can suck up an immense amount of time. So it's just a simple card game, but it's just a great like distraction. So if you're looking for like a casual game that you can get sucked into, check it out. And also, I was lucky enough to be on the Cloudcast this week. It was Cloud News of the Month for September. So we covered all the highlights with Brian and Aaron. So if you're looking for something else to listen to, you're probably already subscribed to the Cloudcast. But if not, go over there, subscribe. You can listen to our episode.
Well, yeah, that was a good episode. I think you found your deal on that podcast. It's good. You fit in well there. Always nice. I think yeah. Anyways, I was gonna remember the things that I like that you said last time, but I don't remember. But they were great. Good job.
Don't worry. Don't worry. You
all
can just
around.
go listen to it. Everyone can go listen to it.
Yeah. I feel like every time I listen, I learn a little bit more about college football, which makes it feel like I'm growing as a person. Well, it's been recommended many times, but I did read the first in the Murder Bot series of books, and I don't know if I'm going to read any more of them. But what I liked about it is it filled that need of like, This is enjoyable, easy to read, and short. And so it was like a kind of like, nowadays how like a lot of TV shows only have like 6 or 7 episodes. Like
The BBC style, yeah.
It's the I don't know what you call this, because it's not the medium, but the kind of like pacing of it. I think the masters of pacing this kind of things is like Slow Horses now, where there's like 6 episodes, but then the next season comes out really quickly, right? So you can kind of feel like you finished a unit, and you're not going to have to wait 3 years to see what happens next. So I like that little short runs and the series of them that come out. So it was fun reading, good stuff. And then you are reminding me, Brandon, with your game recommendation. Here's my main recommendation. My 4.5-year-old has really gotten into this game called Creeks, which is like, I'm sure there's some name for this, but it's like, a 2-dimensional thing where this little guy runs around in a hand-drawn thing, and you have to figure out puzzles of how to get through the room. And man, she is cuckoo for it. She's learning how to like play games kind of sort of through doing it. So it's in Apple Arcade, and I'm sure other places, but it's kind of fun. And then finally, so we finally relaunched the Software Defined Interviews podcast, which is another podcast, and we'll be interviewing people. But I started it with my my former coworker and friend Whitney Lee. She's great. She's big in the Kubernetes world, makes all sorts of videos. Brandon and I were talking at length about her prodigious, copious content production. Always delightful. So our first interview guest was her. Typical me style, minimum amount of work to get the first episode out. Let's interview the co-host. But we've been talking with several other people. We'll have interviews coming out every few weeks. And, don't worry. You can go to softwaredefinedinterviews.com and find it and subscribe to it. So you should subscribe. Tell us and go in. We have a Slack channel for it in our Slack, which you can find at softwaredefinedtalk.com/Slack. And you should make some guest recommendations. I'm guessing many of which we'll ignore based on people recommending guests from the past. But it should be fun and interesting. You'll have a whole new voice in your ear in the whole software-defined area. Speaking of voices in your ear, I bet you'd like a rest, and you might even be feeling a little hungry. You've listened to another episode of Software Defined Talk. This has been episode 487, which you can find show notes for all sorts of things we didn't talk about, links to things, those discount codes, or maybe if you're just lonely and you want something to do, you've read all the internet, you want to scroll through things, go to softwaredefinedtalk.com/487. And with that, we'll see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Well done as always. I think Coté, I was thinking, Chick-fil-A is the software defined talk as college football is to the Cloudcast. Is that like, you think that's a fair, like,
At least this episode.
No.
is that like a fair SAT analogy? Would that be, or no? Matt, you've come in with a hard no. Tell me why.
No, I mean, just probably for us, it's more like open source licensing talk. We can't escape it, but that's kind of core to the message.
That's kind of core. That's like core subject. It's like, what is the off topic thing that
I think
always comes up?
It's just going to be like expat experiences.
I don't know, man. You said it, man. I was like, I wonder if Coté can go a full hour on this. Like, I looked up, he was 20 minutes. He was almost 20 minutes in, and like I think he had like in mental. I could see you had like 2 or 3 more topics. I was like, I don't know. Do we just let him go? Do we like jump in? Like I was.
And I don't even go to that restaurant ever.
Like we tripped like a inside your mind. Like we went down like a whole path. Where like you have a lot of pent up whatever, like knowledge and things you want to express about Chick-fil-A.
Well, I mean, I think there's a broader content stream in here called "What's Wrong with Europe" that I could produce a lot of content on, because really that was just the fried chicken episode of "What's Wrong with Europe."
the fried chicken, the free
and
ice,
the fried chicken and beverage,
the paid bathrooms. Paid
bathrooms.
It's too bad we don't. I guess we'd almost have to have like Jordy or someone now. We need like a European that can come on and like really take us to task.
Yeah, that would
be United States and be like, I can't believe. Obviously, there's lots of obvious ones, healthcare. I don't know, but like maybe make them like maybe the more minor stuff. What's the minor stuff that everybody in Europe hates about America.
That would be a
You know?
great show to have like a European and an American just like it shouldn't even be a debate. It would be like a mutual appreciation of like absurdities, like
Hmm.
cross-culture absurdity stuff. Because like, oh, so many things. You know, you could have a whole episode about like plugs.
Well, I'm going to start out to the listeners, and we should maybe is to say like, okay, what is the most like small thing, not like a cultural or like societal thing. Like, what's the smallest, most annoying inconvenience about Europe? Is it like lack of free ice? Is it the paid bathrooms? What would you say, Coté? What is the number one thing you're just like, gosh, this thing
You know, I don't
really
know if
eats
this
at
is.
me.
You know, you've listed a lot of them. It's
Mhm.
hard to find a place to
Language.
pee. Like, yeah, well, yeah, hard to find a place to pee. Whatever. I'm not going to reiterate what you said,
Mhm.
but like, you know what immediately popped into my head, and if I was analytical, I wouldn't have thought about this. Is like, I can never figure out the fucking switches in the UK. Like, they put these switches on the plugs, and
Mhm.
it's just like, I don't know what that's about. It's the only place I ever go
Oh, Australia
where,
bought it. Yeah.
yeah, and so like, you'll leave your shit in to be charged, and you'll come back, and you'll be like, why isn't this charged? And you're like, oh, right, because I got to flip this fucking switch. Like, who put switches on their plugs? And so
Okay,
I
so
don't
let's
know.
pause there. Okay, so we're gonna say the switches on the plugs are the most
The
annoying
outlets, I
thing.
think, but
Outlets.
yes.
So on
Yeah.
the switches on the outlet are the most annoying thing for, let's say, an American in Europe.
Well,
So what I would
low
like,
grade annoyance, right?
low grade annoyance. So it's like what I would like. We'll put this. I'll try to put this in after. I was like, what I would like is someone from Europe to respond back with like, what is the equivalent American or North American, I guess, a thing that would be similar that they just can't believe that
Right,
we
right,
have
right,
to
right.
do. Because I don't know, I struggle because I'm obviously I don't see it myself. So hopefully someone. So if you have something, find us in the Slack or email questions@softwaredefinedtalk.com and tell us what the most annoying thing is, and I'll read out the list because I
And
bet you
and
there are a bunch of things.
and I think your scoping is important, right? Like, it has to be trivial. It can't
Yeah.
be like, you know, healthcare
Yeah. I
or
don't want to
or
take
or
something that does damage. Like, we all know that
like,
one.
I think and for the scoping, I think the maximum scope would be the idea that you have to drive everywhere. I think that's a legitimate thing to say. But beyond that, I think you're just blowing the scope up into like
Yeah.
civilization,
No, just
kind
the
of.
thing. Like you
Where
walk
did
into the hotel
where
room
does
in the United States, and you're just like, I can't believe this thing doesn't. It either has something or doesn't do something. Some or
how
whatever.
about tipping culture?
Yeah.
That feels like something
I
that
think
used to
that's
be
All right,
trivial that has
let's not
gotten
lead
blown
the
out in the
listeners.
US.
I want unvarnished. I want them to come up with it on their own. I don't want to, yes, there are some stuff. So okay, so everyone should check that out. All right. Well, unfortunately, I didn't have the Slack open till like the very end, but looked like we had a great, lively conversation. Good to see Michael, Darth Vikes. That's enough. I don't know that one. That's good to see them here as well. TJ Banks and many others. So appreciate all of you watching the stream. We will likely stream next week. It'll probably be Matt and myself. So it means less Chick-fil-A talk, but definitely talk about chips, just the other kind of chips. Until then, we'll talk to you later.